Okay, hello and welcome to Sally's Custom Clayworks. Today we are going to be making owl planters or vases. You get to pick which one you want to do. Personally, my favorite is the owl vase. They're just so silly with their little animals in them, and you can pick animals in them? No, plants in them. I guess plants are kind of animals, but it does look like hair. So this one here was mine that I had done a few years ago, and it has a beautiful African violet in it. And then this is one that my 5-year-old did last year, Jubilee, and she had decided to plant this aloe vera in it. It's doing quite well. They're lots of fun, but you could also turn it into a vase if you like. So to get started today, you will need a couple of things. You'll need your board that you got from your instructor that looks like this. We're actually going to be building on our board today. You'll want to put down a piece of paper on top of that. And this is going to be your working surface. We don't want your piece to stick to it, so if you could put down a piece of newspaper, that would be ideal. So you have your board, a piece of newspaper. You have your brown paper to roll your clay out on top of. You're going to need a sharp tool, paintbrush and some slip, a container of water and a sponge, especially if your clay is getting dried out. You're going to want your tub lids like this, or if you've got some biscuit cutters, you're going to want a variety of biscuit cutters. You will need a couple of different sizes today. So you'll need a larger one and a smaller one for the eyes. I like 2 smaller shapes for the eyes. If you don't have the biscuit cutters, I can show you a way also to make these without them. But if you have the lids, you can do the same thing with the lids by tracing around them. So we'll talk about that. And you might want to grab a texture of some kind. So there are several ways that you can make textures. One is by putting fabric onto your owls. Another is to carve into the surface. So I'm going to show both of those. And you will also need your ruler, a squeegee tool. This is the one that has the wooden handle and the 2 rubber points, and your sharp tool as well. And there are several sharp tools in your kit. You can pick whichever one you like for scoring and slipping. And you'll also need a roller. So we're going to start out just by warming up our clay and getting our hands into it. We want to get our clay into 2 balls. So you'll need one smaller ball. This is going to be for the bottom of your owl. And you need one bigger ball. This is going to be for the sides. And I'm not too concerned about how much, but for kids you're probably going to want to use less than for an adult. So you'll notice that the kid one, it's just a little shorter. It's about the same size as my adult one. So your bag should already have balls pretty much prepared for you. But anyway, if you feel like it's too big, you can cut some off or just pull some off with your hand. So first we're going to start by getting our clay into a ball. Take the palm of your hand or bonk it on the table to get it. I'm just going to use the palm of my hand. Start making it into a ball. You don't want to squeeze the clay or put your fingers in it too much. And you'll notice the clay gets softer as you work it. So there's one. I'm going to do another one. The big one's a little harder. For little guys, for little people, it might be better to bonk it on the table. It's kind of noisy, so I'm not going to do that. And for this piece, it doesn't have to be in a ball. You can work it more into a big potato shape or egg shape. Because we're going to make this piece longer anyway. Okay, so I've got those. And we will need some extra pieces of clay for our eyes and our wings and that sort of thing, but we can get those out in a little bit. So first what we'll want to do is start out with our little guy. We're going to turn on the air compressor. That's okay, my dad's working in the other room. We're gonna roll out the bottom piece. And our goal is about 1/4 inch thickness. And you'll notice I'm kind of picking the clay up off the table and moving it around. It kind of gets stuck on the table and then doesn't want to get any bigger. And you can stand up and do this too, put some downward pressure on it. But we want it to be nice and even. You don't want it to be really thin on one side and really thick on the other. So this is the goal, at 1/4 inch thickness. We're just going to set that aside. And now we're going to do this one. This is going to be the body of our owl. So we're going to work on this. And after you do your slabs, you can let them set up for a little bit until they get what we call leather hard. And that's just when the clay hardens a little bit and it's still workable, still can move it around. But it isn't so wet that it wants to flop on you. So I'm picking the clay up, turning it around, kind of working. And we want same thickness as before. Our goal is 1/4 inch of thickness. And I'm trying to make the biggest rectangle I could possibly make with this piece of clay. And mine is getting a kind of a weird shape. But that's okay. Maybe my owl will be kind of short this time, like Jubilee's. I do want it to be kind of tall. So I'm still working it. Okay, so 1/4 inch thickness. At this point, you're just going to leave it on your table and you're going to let it sit. So I want you to pause the video and come back in about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. If you come back and the clay still seems like when you pick it up, it's still really super floppy, it's not quite ready. You want it to be what we call leather hard thickness, and it's nice and set up. I'm going to demonstrate with it floppy, and you can do it this way too. It's just a little bit harder to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our rectangle as large as we possibly can with this piece of clay. And you can see that it's very uneven. I've got kind of a oval, a curved side on this side and a curved side on this side. And then these two are pretty similar. But what we can do is we can take our ruler and we can kind of find where the edge starts to curve and cut that off. So I've got you can also have your mom, or you could print out a very big rectangle and then use a rectangle as a pattern, but the rectangle is kind of the goal. So we're going to cut off one side. I used my ruler as a straight edge. Now I've got a straight edge on that side. And now I'm just going to kind of even these sides up as well. We are going to be overlapping them in the back just to make it easy. You can see on the back of this owl, I've got this piece overlapped. That just makes a bigger planter. And we don't have to really worry about cutting it off. So I've got my pieces. I'm actually going to cut mine off because I want it to be wider. Kind of counterintuitive, but I'm going to still overlap them a little bit. What I'm doing now is I'm cutting my sides off a little bit. I'm getting the nice, as big of a rectangle as I can out of this. And again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I'm going to leave one of the edges curved. And the reason I'm doing that is because I like the face of the owl to kind of have this curved side to it. This one here, she cut it straight across. And you can do that too if you prefer that straight across look. You would just take your ruler and one of your cutting tools and just cut straight across there. I'm kind of holding firmly onto that ruler as I'm cutting across as well, and that just gives me a nice straight line. I wouldn't recommend just eyeballing it and cutting it across. You have a tendency to kind of have jagged lines. So now I've got this piece here. I'm going to see how big it is. So I'm going to have a nice tall owl out of this, which is good. It's going to be a little taller than this one. But that's okay. Clay shrinks in the firing. It's probably going to shrink down just a little bit. Now what I want to do is figure out what size circle I need to fit my owl on there. So I am going to get my cutters out, and if you have lids, try to find a lid that's about the same size as your cylinder here. These are just so handy to have because I can pick any size really and say, does that fit? So I'm kind of lining it up. That one fits quite well. So I'm going to use this one and cut it out. Now I've got my base and I can set this aside. We're going to use that later for wings. We can set our other pieces aside as well. And this one also. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put these pieces together. We're going to use a technique called scoring and slipping. You are going to need your scoring tool or your sharp tool. You'll need your slip, which was in your clay kit, and your paintbrush. You might want to give your slip a little mix. We want it to be kind of a thick, pasty goop. This is just clay and water that's been mixed together. It makes a slurry, and this slurry is our glue. So we're going to think of our slip as our glue. Mix it up a little bit. Mine's pretty watery on top. And anytime we put two pieces of clay together in the firing, we have to do what's called scoring and slipping. And this is really super important because in the firing, the clay shrinks and it wants to separate. So if these two pieces are just put together and the clay is shrinking, it's just going to pull away from each other and you're going to have a crack there. So what we want to do is increase the surface area on one side by scoring, increase the surface area on the other side by scoring, put our glue on there, and then they have a lot of area to hold on to one another and they're not going to pop apart. So we have this piece, and I want to stick this piece on it. You can do it two ways. You can go around the outside, or you can do it on top. I'm going to be going around the outside because I have plenty of clay to do that. If your top piece is seeming to be a little small, you can do it on top, and that will make it fit better. So now I'm going to score. I said I was going to put mine around the outside, so I need to score on this part here. If you're putting your clay piece on top of it, you're going to be scoring along the top. So I'm going to make my score marks. Scoring just means to make little marks. You can do X's or hashtags. I'm just going to make little scratching marks. And I'm not digging really super deep. I don't want to make cuts into my base. I just want to make little marks on the surface. And some kids find this to be really tedious, so parents, if you need to help them, please do. I don't want them popping apart when they come to my house. Okay, so I have that scored, and you can see it's all scored all the way around. Now I'm going to score this one here, and I was going to put this piece around the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently set it down, and I'm going to score all along this bottom part. Now if you were setting it on top, you would score underneath. Okay, so I'm going to score all along here. If you have a question about where you're supposed to score, just look at where the two pieces are coming together. Anywhere the two pieces are coming together, that's where you need to score. Okay, so I have all my scratch marks. Now, we have our scoring. We're missing a part, our slip. So we're going to put our slip on here next. And I'm going to do the slip only on one side. If you do slip on both sides, they have a tendency to just slip past one another. So we're just going to do slip going all the way around on one side. And I'm just going to put it on my base. I like putting it on my base. And I'm kind of globbing it on there. I'm not being stingy with it. Don't be stingy with it. This is your glue. So go ahead and glop it on there. Oops. Then I'm going to attach this. Now, Once I get this up here, you're gonna notice that we have our side pieces to deal with. And earlier in the video, I said that we were going to overlap them. So one side is gonna overlap onto the other side, and we're going to have to score and slip those parts also. You can do that at this stage while it's laying down, if it's a little bit easier for you. I like to do it once it's up, and that way I can kind of see where I need to score and slip. So I'm gonna do this so you can see it too. I'm gonna try to do it backwards. So normally I would do this facing towards me so I can see what I'm doing, but I want you to see. So I'm gonna start at the back side pressing, going all the way around, kind of like a zipper. And now I'm pressing on the other side, going all the way around like a zipper. And now I've got these parts here that I also need to score and slip. So I'm gonna score all along here, and I'm gonna score all along here and slip and put it together. So I'm gonna take a second to do that. So I'm gonna make some bigger marks this time. I like to do all my marks the same direction and then go over it and do the other direction, just to get a thorough scoring. Same thing on this one. Now, because I'm making this into a planter, I can put a hole at the bottom of it as well if I want. And before you put the sides up, that's a really good time to bank a hole on it, or you could do it after, and I can show that to you. But you don't have to. So if you don't glaze the inside, the clay is naturally going to want to pull some of the moisture out of the dirt, and you don't have to water it quite so often. But if you're going to plant things in there and you are a heavy waterer, you water a lot, then you're going to want to put a hole under the bottom. If you want it to be a vase, you're not going to need any hole at all. Okay, so I did my scoring. Now I'm going to do my slip, starting on one side, not doing it on both sides. Okay. And now for this part, I'm going to put my hand on the inside, and it's the same thing as kind of what I did on the outside part. I'm going to kind of zipper it up. So putting one hand on the inside. Parents, you might have to help your kids with this part, and kind of pressing it together. We want to get a really good firm hold there. Okay, so we have that. Now we're going to flip it over, and your clay should be set up so it should be really easy to flip over. What you're going to want to do is work on this bottom part, kind of smoothing it out and pressing it together. So I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but I'm pressing around the outside. Can you see it, or do I need to tilt it more? And then I'm going to smooth over it with my finger like this. Okay. And the next thing you'll want to do is put your name on it. It's upside down, so it's a really good time to put your name on it. I like the squeegee tool for writing. And you want to put the year. Okay. Now that you have it flipped back over, excuse me, I have dry throat again. You'll want to kind of fix the rim a little bit, even it up. You might get a little bit of cracking around the rim. If that happens, you can take a little bit of water and a sponge, and when I say a little, I mean very small amount. Put it on the rim, and then use your finger to smooth it out. I don't need any water because my clay is very wet still, because I didn't let it set up before I worked with it, so I'm just smoothing it out with my finger. Okay, so now you can kind of see where I'm going with this. This is going to be the back of my owl. This is going to be the front of my owl. Now I'm going to think about giving my owl some shape. And I like to do what's called bellying the piece out, and that just means to give it a belly. The best way to do that is by putting our fingers on the inside, holding the outside of the piece with the other hand. And then I'm just kind of pressing and kind of like you're stroking a cat. Kind of pressing with my fingers on the inside just like this. And doing that over and over again. And what happens is it pushes the piece of clay outward. So this is kind of a side view of that. See how it just kind of pushed that out? So I'm going to do that on this. I'm going to turn it this way. And I'm going to make a belly on my owl. And then I'm also going to do the same thing on the head part. So it kind of has this shape. So I'm going to have the head and then I'm going to have a belly. So I'm going to do the belly first. And I'm going to hold. And you're going to want to do this so you can see. But I'm trying to do it so you can see what I'm doing. I'm kind of pressing from the inside. I'm holding the bottom so it doesn't come apart. And I'm making that belly. You don't have to do this. If you like the shape to be straight, you can leave it straight. Like Jubilee did on her owl. It's kind of hard to do sitting down. You might want to stand up when you do this. Okay? I always say that working with clay is kind of an active sport. Okay, so now I've got this bottom part that's bellied out. Now I want to belly out the face a little bit. So I'm going to hold at the rim. So the rim's not going anywhere. I'm just working on the top part so that the face kind of bellies out a little bit. Making a really cute little shape. And again, I'm just kind of doing this motion with my fingers. It's probably hard for you to see what I'm doing. Just kind of doing that motion with my fingers. Changing the shape a little bit. Okay. What do you think? I think it's looking kind of cute. And I hope yours is looking cute too. I wish you all were here so I could see what you're doing and help. Okay. So now that we have it this far, we can start thinking about adding elements to it. Like eyes and a beak and maybe some wings. And decorating it. And this is kind of the fun part for those of you that like to decorate things. Oh, shame. I just bonked it. So if you ever bonk your piece and you make a big gouge out of it, it can be fixed. Don't panic. Just kind of press it back out with your fingers and gently work it. You have a question?
Mm-mm.
No?
I'm one of those crazy decorators.
Ah, crazy decorators. Okay. I'm just evening my rim up. I'm pinching the rim just a little bit to even it up. I have it really thin on one side and kind of thick on the other side. Just making it look nice. Okay, so first thing we're going to work on is our eyes. You have a couple of options when you make eyes. You can cut them out. If you've got this handy biscuit cutter set, it comes with all sorts of different sizes. And you can cut out, you can cut out a couple of sizes. One for the outer part of the eye, one for the inner part of the eye. I think that's what Jubilee did on hers. It's pretty simple. So she used a larger cutter for the outside of the eye, and she used a smaller cutter for the inside of the eye. I'm not sure what I did on mine. Let's see, what did I do? I did the same thing on mine. I'm going to demonstrate a different way of doing it, just in case you don't have these. These are very simple to use. All you need to do is take a slab that you had already rolled out, and if you crumpled yours up, you can always just put your clay together again, make a ball out of it, and roll it out again, and then use your cutters, just pressing them into the clay. Cut out 2 of each. 1, 2. And then I'll cut some smaller ones. 1, 2. Now, you might notice if your slab was a little thick that your eyeballs are really thick. If that's the case, go ahead and roll out your slab a little bit more, make them thinner, and then you put them together. So remember, if you put these together, you're going to need to do scoring and slipping. So you have to score this part together and this part together. And then when you put them on your owl, you also have to score and slip them on your owl, okay? So I'm going to show you a different way of making the eyes by taking 2 pieces of clay that are pretty similar in size. So this is, you just kind of have to eyeball it. Make a ball out of it. I'm just rolling it in my hands. I'm gonna make another ball because I want to make sure that they're the same size before I do anything with them. So I just look at them, I set them down and I look at them and I say, those are about the same size. It's pretty scientific, right? Then I'm gonna do 2 more smaller balls, rolling them out with my hands. Okay, so now I've got 2 sizes. These first ones, I'm gonna take them and I'm gonna flatten them out in my hand. You can also flatten them on the table. So this is a great thing to do if you don't have those cutters. Sometimes I don't know where my cutters went, and so the result is I have to just make my circles by hand. But they're fairly easy to make. Okay, so I've got my outer circles. Now I'm going to work on my inner circles. Giving my owl some cute little eyes. 1, 2. Okay, so now I've got my eyes, and I need to score and slip them together. So I'm going to pull them off. And I kind of like to set things on here and then look at them on my owl face too, and then you can adjust and say, are these too big? Are they too big? Or do I like them the size they are? So it's totally up to you. I'm going to take a look. They're hilariously large. I'm going to leave them just because I think they're really funny. And Michelle thinks they're funny too. Michelle's my photographer. She helps me. She asks me questions. She's also one of my students. Okay, so I'm going to leave my hilariously large eyes, but what did I forget to do? Do you remember? Michelle knows.
Score and slip.
Score and slip. Okay, so I'm going to score and slip these on. Oh, and, well, we can do it afterward. I was going to say, before you score and slip them, you could decorate them. And you can. But I'm actually going to decorate them once they're on. I think it's a little easier. So I'm scoring both.
There we go.
Scoring both sides so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just making some marks on there. Okay, so now I've got everything scored. I'm going to put my glue on there, my slip. Put these on. Kind of squish them on there a little bit. Now, these are going to go on here. So now I'm going to look at where I want them. And kind of a trick when you're doing, this is called an applique, really. Anytime you're applying something on top of your clay, it's called an applique. So anytime you do this, you can kind of put them on there and then you can trace around them a little bit just so you know where you're supposed to be scoring. Give yourself some little indicators. You can also just go for it. I have a tendency to have marks in the wrong spots and then you're like, uh-oh, I don't really want those there. Okay, so I have my marks that I did, and now I'm going to score them. I'm trying to do this so you can see it too. Tricky, tricky. Okay. And I probably could do some more scoring there. I didn't do very much.
Be the one-eyed owl.
If you don't do enough scoring and slipping, they're just going to come off in the firing, and then you're going to have a one-eyed owl. And you're going to say, Miss Sally, why do I have a one-eyed owl? Or it'll pop off when you come and bring it for it to be fired. So I'm going to put these on, I'm going to look and see what I'm doing. And then I'll turn it around so you can see. I'm just putting them on there, kind of finding a good spot for them. They're really large, but that's okay. Owls kind of have those big eyes, big eyes, right? Okay, so I've got my big owly eyes. Now I'm gonna think about a beak. And the beak is a similar process as the eyes. We're going to take a small piece of clay. Now, if you want a big beak, you take a bigger piece of clay. So any size that you want, I'm gonna take a small one. Make a ball out of it. And then we're gonna pinch it and make kind of a triangular shape. So first thing, before you do that, let's make it a little longer, okay? Then you're gonna pinch the top part just a little bit. And I'm making it more into a point at the bottom because their beaks kind of come down and point. They're not really curved though. If you make it curved, it's more of a parrot. So I'm flattening the top a little bit and I'm pinching. So I'm kind of making a carrot shape. Okay, and let's see what Jubilee did. So Jubilee did something very similar to what I did. And this one is very tiny. Okay, so when I put this on here, I'm gonna say, is that too big? And I'm gonna look at it. It's hilariously large. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, this is just way too big, right? The scale is off. So I'm gonna cut it, but I'm gonna cut it long ways. So I'm gonna keep the shape. I'm gonna use one of my clay cutters, and you have a variety in your toolkit. Probably the potter's knife is the best one to use. And I'm gonna cut it in half. Now I have 2 beaks because I just cut it in half long ways. I can decide which one I like better. So I'm gonna put this one on and take a look and say, do I like that? Or do I like this one? I kind of like this one. My eyes are so big that where I would normally place it is kind of high up on the eyes, so it makes it look really cute, but my eyes are so big that there's not really any space between them. I'm trying to fix it a little bit. Okay, so I found the spot that I want them, and I'm going to score and slip that on there. And again, you can mark it where you're going to put it. Move this out of the way. You can mark it where you're going to put it. And then just go ahead and score it. And I'm going to score the other side. Now, if anything that you are making, you want it to be more detailed, you are more than welcome to be more detailed. You can print out a picture of an owl that you really like, and you can make it after that. There's lots of different kinds of owls, and some of them are really, really beautiful and detailed. You are more than welcome to. Mine are kind of cartoon owls. This is the cartoon version. You can make it more detailed if you want. Just remember, whatever you add, you need to score and slip. Okay, so now I've got my beak on there. Now let's talk about the wings a little bit. So I have these heart cookie cutters that I usually use, but I didn't grab them out today because I figured not everybody's gonna have a heart cookie cutter, right? And Jubilee, she used the heart cookie cutter, but she added a texture onto this. And what do you think the texture might have been that she used?
Her fingers?
Her fingers, right. So she used her fingers to make those little tiny dots, and I think they're really sweet. You can use any of the tools from your toolkit you want. You guys have a couple of different tools for making textures. You have loop tools in your toolkit. You also have this wonderful squeegee tool that I love to make marks in the clay. I'm going to show you. And you can also use a piece of fabric. So if you have like a doily laying around that you don't use, that was not your great-grandmother's, that you really like and you don't mind getting it ruined, well, it won't ruin it, but you probably should want to hand wash it after you're done using it. It could ruin it. So don't use anything that's really important. Or if you have a piece of fabric laying around that you really like that has a texture, like this one has a really cool texture to it, and I'm going to give it a try. There's a couple of different things you can do. So first, let's cut out the wings. So we're gonna take a slab, and this one is one that I just had an extra slab sitting around. And I'm gonna take a cutting tool, and you can kind of draw it on there first. I'm gonna make mine, let's see, do I wanna make it, maybe I'll just make it wing shaped. So I'll have to cut out 2 of these. Normally what I'll do is I'll just cut out one, and then I'll place it on there and say, do I like that? And if I like it, then I'll cut out another one. So I'll get another slab, I'll lay it on there, and I'll trace it out. You're gonna want to do the opposite of whatever you just did for the other side. Unless, of course, you do like a heart. They're gonna be the same shape, and they're gonna go the same direction. So let's see. So I've got this. I'm gonna cut that out. Now, you noticed that I used my roller on that piece of clay. The reason I did that was because my piece of clay underneath this one was too thick. So I was just rolling it out so I would have a similar thickness as this one here. And you can see they're pretty similar, not bad. Okay, so I'm just gonna pinch around that, make it look more organic. That's what we call that. Have an organic edge. We don't want a sharp edge. Same goes for this one. Now, at any time during the video, if you need to stop and work on your work, you can pause the video and then come back afterward. Okay, so I've got my wings. I've got 1 and I've got 2. Let me see what they look like from this side. Gotta kind of get them in the right spot. Okay. So let's add some texture to these. I'm going to add some texture to these before I put them on permanently. You can put them on and then put your texture on, especially if you're going to be carving into your clay. I would put them on first and then carve them out. But let's say that I wanted to put a texture from a piece of fabric or a doily on there. What I would do is take these off, put them on the fabric. Let me see, this one goes this way. I'm just making sure I have them on the correct side. And that one. Okay, so you have to do the opposite of whatever they are. If they're both going the same direction, they're gonna look funky. So I'm doing putting the opposites here. And then you can use your roller again and just gently roll on top of it. And hopefully when you pick it up, you'll have a nice texture left behind. So this one, the texture is very subtle, which is okay because I'm also going to show you how to make other textures on our clay. I'm going to set those aside. I'm going to show you how to carve wings also. So maybe I'll do it on a separate piece. Okay, so for that, the texture that Jubilee did with her fingers, she just pressed with her finger into the clay again and again and again, making kind of a feather pattern. I guess is the way to say it. The other thing you can do is, in your toolkit, you have some loop tools. These are for carving. And your clay is going to be nice and set up, so you can carve away at it as soon as it's leather hard, and it makes great texture. So you can cut feather shapes into it using your loop tool. Now, the loop tools have edges to them, so if you're using like the flat side of the loop tool, you're going to get a bigger chunk out of it like that. But if you use the corner of your tool, you're going to get a more precise carving out of it. Okay, so there's that. There's also these round tools. You can make dots with these. You just stick it on the clay and turn it like that. Don't go deep though. If you're doing it on the side and you go really deep, you're going to go right through. And I think you have this one in your kit. I should double check. But that one's also really fun to do. You can really use anything as a texture. You could even use a fork or some random tool that you find in the house. Anything that has kind of a deep groove in it that you can push into the clay makes a great texture. And if you guys were in the studio, I have a variety of really fun textures to play with, but you guys aren't here, so you'll have to just see what you find at home that you want to use. Okay. So I've got my wing here, and I think that I'm gonna do some carvings into my wings just to make it pretty. Maybe I'll do some dots at the top of the wings. If you don't like using these carving tools and you want to do dots, you can also use this tool. Is great for making dots. The round side, you just press it into the clay and it makes these great little dots. Maybe I'll do a combination of both. These carving tools are a little messy. They leave behind burrs, so after it dries, I would go behind with my finger and kind of pull all of those little burrs off so that they're not sharp after the firing. So I'm making some cute little dots here. And I might also make some dots on the belly of my owl too, since I'm in kind of a dot theme. Polka dots. Texture is a really great thing to add to your owls because once it's glazed, the glaze kind of sits in the grooves of the texture and makes it look much more interesting rather than it was just a smooth surface. So that's why I love texture so much. It just adds lots of interest to the piece. So I did that, and maybe, I don't know that it needs much of anything else. I think that's going to be pretty cute, actually. Okay, so let me get these situated on here. And again, you can kind of eyeball it and see where you like them. And then mark it with your squeegee tool or a pencil even. You can mark it very gently where these are going to go. I'm going to mark mine with my squeegee tool. And basically just tracing around it so I know where it's going to go. Now, some owls, they have horns or ears, like the great horned owl. You could add horns to your owl. You can add more feathers. You can add a tail. We can add a tail at the end, or even feet. So like this one, I added little feet to it. They're basically the same shape as the nose, and then I just carved a couple of lines into it to make the little feet shape. Pretty cute. Oh, I forgot something on my eyes. So what I forgot on the eyes is just the little dot on the eye, or the iris. You can use your squeegee tool, use the round side, and just give it a poke right in the center of that one there. So I got to turn it so I can see it. I'm going to give it a poke. I'm just kind of putting it in and then twisting a little bit. Hopefully they're even, because I couldn't see what I was doing. Okay, now the wings are kind of on there. I need to score and slip them on, so I'm going to do that really quickly. And pull them off. And some people get really bogged down by scoring. There are tools that have multiple kind of teeth on them and you can score all at once. A fork also works really good. I don't like to use a fork because it kind of tends to go too deep. But any scratching tool will work. It doesn't have to be a specific tool.
Would a spork work?
I think a spork could work. As long as it's got little teeth on it. I think it does.
It couldn't go as deep as a fork.
Yeah, that could work. Okay. So we have our scratches there. Oh, I need to do my scratches on my owl. So this is the part where you want to just stay inside your lines you made so you know where you're going, and don't do what I just did and cut really deep into your piece. So I kind of made a hole there. I'm going to fill it in and put my finger over it. You want to be careful. And my clay is starting to set up and get leather hard, which makes it a little nicer to work with. Okay, so I have that one. Now I'm going to do the other one. You can't see what I'm doing again. Sorry. Tendency to do that. So much easier to work so I can see. Let's see. I'm scoring.
Could you use scoring as a texture?
You could. And actually, in our monster mug project that we're doing, that's one of the suggested textures, is a scoring texture. Okay, so there's that. And actually, the scoring is a pretty nice texture to indicate wings. I don't really have to put applique wings on there if I like that. So, okay. But I'm going to applique my wings on there. I'm going to add some slip now. I like putting slip on the body of the piece because it kind of covers up any scoring lines that are outside of the place where they're supposed to be. It smooths them out. So you'll notice I'm not like painting this on and really like smoothing out the lines. I'm just globbing it on there, okay? You don't want to work it too much, or when you smash it together, you're gonna have already covered up all those lines, and then it's like you didn't even score that side. So we're just kind of globbing it on. I'm not painting it all painterly and slow and a little bit. I'm just globbing it on there. Okay, so I've got it on there. Now I can put my wings on. So with the wings, this is really important. I have a little line here that I don't want here. This is really important. Are you listening? You ready? When you put your wings on, we're going to be careful not to trap an air bubble underneath them. Oops. So if I'm putting this piece on here, I want to make sure that it's laying as flat to it as possible, okay? We don't want to trap an air bubble under there like that, because what will happen, unless it's open, if it was open, like if I had it like that and it was open to that hole underneath, it would be fine. But if there's an actual bubble trapped underneath there, in the firing, when this clay releases its water and turns to steam, your wing will actually blow off of there. It'll blow up. So we want to make sure it's nice and flat. So how we're going to do that is we're going to start at one end and we're going to zip it up on there, just like we did the body piece when we put those pieces together. So I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to work my way down, pressing. So you'll notice I didn't just slap the whole thing on there. I started at this point and I worked my way down, and then I'm kind of gently pressing all around, making sure there's not an air bubble trapped underneath there. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to put this on here, starting at one end, working my way down. Okay, and I just want to make sure that they're even, so I'm going to take a look. And they're not quite even. They're kind of hard to adjust once you've really pressed them down. That's the only trick. So you might want to put one on and then make sure the next one you're putting on is at a good spot. Okay, so this is looking pretty darn cute. Now I can think about other elements like feet or horns or maybe decorations around the eyes or a tail even. For my tail, I'm just going to keep it really simple because I've got this little overlapped piece there and it kind of already looks like a tail. I'm going to take my squeegee tool and I'm going to just draw it in. 3 little lumps there. And then kind of smooth out those spots that are sticking up and look ugly with my finger. And now I've got my tail. Now, for the eyes and the belly, we should do a little bit more decorating. We could do some eyebrows. So we can do that in a couple of different ways. There are other techniques other than slab. Oh, I didn't even mention what we're doing. We're doing slab building. It's a good thing to know. So anytime you're rolling out a slab of clay, it's called slab building. But there are other things that you can do too. You can build with coils. So for the eyebrows, we're gonna make a couple of coils, and we're just gonna pick some clay out. It's about the same size. Make it into a ball first. And if your clay is getting dry and starts to crack on you, you can get a little bit of water on your sponge and put it on there and kind of work it in. That's the great thing about clay is you can recycle it. So anyway, coil building just means to build with coils. So I'm going to make a coil. I don't know if you guys remember being in kindergarten when you played with Play-Doh and made snakes. It's kind of the same thing. I'm making a big snake here. Maybe I'll do another one. This is, you know what, this one is much too long anyway, so I could probably use this one coil for both of mine. Okay? That's hilarious. Okay, so I have to figure out what I'm doing here. I'm going to cut it in half.
Aw.
I know, it was cute. And this is the design portion. You can decide to do anything you want. So I'm actually gonna do this kind of thing where I do a little curly Q on the end, and all I did to make that curly Q was I took the clay and very gently turned it under. It's nice and slow. If you do it too quickly, it's gonna crack on you. And I made a little coil. So now I'm gonna do this one on the other side. And I have to figure out a way to make these go together so they look nice. So I've got to change the angle of that.
Would you have to score and slip those together too?
Yes, we do. Anytime we put things, anytime we add pieces, we have to score and slip. I don't know that these look all that great, but they're really funny, so I'm going to leave them. What do you think? I think owls, they don't really have that curly thing.
I think he needs a monocle.
They have like more of a point, don't they? They look more like ears that way. So I just pinched those. Okay, so now I'm going to score and slip those on. And again, any time you want to put them anything together, you just have to score both sides. So I'm not really going to mark these because it's kind of obvious. I guess I should just mark where these things stick up. It's kind of obvious where I'm supposed to be marking, but pull them off. I'm going to score the back sides of them. I'm going to score in between because they do come together on the inside. And I'm going to score the little face where they come together. Okay, so you can see it's all scored and ready to go. I'm going to put some slip on here. Again, globbing it on. On here. Okay, I'm going to turn it around so I can see what I'm doing. You get the idea. I need two cameras. I need one at the back of me and one at the front of me so you can see from both directions. Okay, so he's getting really cute. I think he does need some texture on his body, so we're going to do that. And let's see, what do I want to use? I have this pencil laying around, and that would make some really good dots as well. I think I might do that. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Could also use pen. See if it works. Ooh, the pen doesn't work quite as well, but it does make kind of a cool texture. Pen has a tendency to kind of want to stick to it. I think I'll use the pencil. I think that worked the best. So for the pencil, I need to really support this a little bit. So I'm putting my hand in the inside while I'm pressing. If I don't, my shape is going to change. So I'm actually giving it a little counter pressure from the inside with my hand. It's kind of tricky because I don't want the shape to change too much. Okay, let me see what I've got here. You can do it if you're really gentle. I like to put the counter pressure there because then I know that my shape is definitely not going to change. And I think might give them a little bit of texture around the eyes. I'm just pressing my squeegee tool into the eye, kind of like that on the corners. Can you see that? Giving a little texture there. Oops. Let's see what I've got. Okay, I think the only thing he really needs are some feet. So the feet are pretty easy. We can use a slab again, just like before. If you have a thicker one, that's probably the best one to use. And we're just gonna make kind of a triangle shape. You're gonna make two of those. So you can draw one and then put that on top of the other one and then cut another one. So now I've got two of these. And let's see how it fits. They might be too big, but they're kind of cool. Okay. And now I'm going to draw my little, they are too big. So I'm just going to cut them down a little bit. They don't need to be quite that wide. But I lost some of my thickness when I did that. Okay, so I'm going to change the shape a little bit just by pinching it. Little triangle feet. I'm going to use my squeegee tool. I like to use this kind of writer's edge one, not the round edge, but the other one, to do the lines of the toes. So I've got my toes. And you can do this however you want. This is just the way that I'm doing it. I don't know that it's right or wrong or anything. It's just kind of a guess. What I think looks right. Okay, and then those I would fit up underneath there and say, do those look good? Do I like that? And then if I like them, then I'll score and slip them on. You could also make them more individually. Like if you want them to have 3 distinct toes, you can actually cut your slabs and then score and slip them together and make them have more distinct toes. That's another way of doing it. That's more of an advanced way of doing it because you have to score and slip every little piece. So for kids, I would recommend doing the triangular way. For an adult that is wanting to make a beautiful owl, I would make them the other way, where you'd make the individual toes and then put them together. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm not going to put those on there. I think he's all ready to go. Just make sure that your name is on it. Make sure that the back is not coming apart. Oh, and if you are going to plant plants in here and you want it to have a drain hole, you can put a drain hole in the bottom. Use your squeegee tool. Turn it over, so you might have to wait until it sets up a little bit more. Turn it over or just hold it. If it's set up, you can hold it in one hand without it squishing. Mine is not set up, so I'm not going to do that. It just changes the shape. But anyway, let's pretend that this was the bottom. What you do is you take the squeegee tool and you just press it in and then get it to the fat part, okay? And you'll have a nice size drain hole. The other way you can do it is take one of your smaller cutting tools, just hold it from the inside and then excuse me, my throat's getting dry again. Then just press it on through there and you'll have a hole. Okay? Let's see, is there anything else I need to say? Make sure you have your name on it. Texture it the way you want. Then For the first night that it's drying, I want you to cover it with plastic. Take like a plastic bag and just cover it gently. It doesn't have to be tight, okay? Then after that, you're gonna take it off, take the plastic off, and just let it dry until you bring it back to the studio. I hope you guys had a really good time. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.
Bye.